1,316 days. That was the title reign for the one and only, the tribal chief, the head of the table, Roman Reigns. But of course, that reign has ended now, thanks to Cody Rhodes, who finally finished the story at WrestleMania 40. And now all signs point towards a match between Cody and The Rock coming up at some point in the future, based on what we saw on the Raw after WrestleMania this week. And now, though, there's something we need to do before we turn all of our attention to Cody and The Rock, and even potentially our attention to what we're going to see go down on this week's edition of SmackDown on Friday, which should, I think, give us some sort of idea as to where things are headed with the Bloodline. But before we get there, let's take just a second to do what this man has asked people to do for years now, and that is acknowledge him. Acknowledge Roman Reigns and what he was able to accomplish with that 1,316-day reign as champion. So, again, there were lots of people towards the end of this thing that just wanted to see Roman Reigns lose, right? And it's understandable because this was a long title reign. We're not used to seeing these kind of title reigns in wrestling history in recent years, of course. Like, there was a time back in the day, as we know, that you had people holding the title for years and years and years. Reigns' title reign, as of now, is the fourth longest since, the late 80s, I think 1988 or so. So he's certainly, in a very elite class in terms of being up there with the Brunos and the Hogans and those kind of guys in terms of the length of the reign. Now, did he have as many matches? Did he, maybe wrestle as much as guys did back then? Of course not. The schedule is different. It's a different era and all of that. But there are some things here that I think we have to remember when it comes to, even if there were people that were just wanting to see Roman Reigns lose, they were tired of this title reign, all of these other things. That's kind of how they played it, was they wanted you to see Roman Reigns lose. They wanted you at the end to be ready to finally see Cody finish his story. And I think what's important here is to understand, and this is something that even I forget sometimes, it's like Cody's moment, Cody finishing the story, does not have that same type of dramatic effect, the same type of emotional sort of finish there where when you see the three counted and everyone explodes. If that would have been just anyone that Cody had beaten, if that would have been just someone who had held the title for, let's say, 6 months or even a year, right? It would have felt like a big deal. But the fact is, Roman Reigns was the guy that made that moment even bigger because of everything that they had done with him to that point. They had made him feel like the invincible monster that could not be conquered. And you just never knew. And remember, even going into WrestleMania 40, I said, there were still those little tiny doubts thinking, could they really do this again? It got pretty clear at some point closer that they were not going to and that Cody was going to win this thing. But there were still people wondering. I have seen this time and time again. Nobody's beaten Roman Reigns. And I know, like I said, there's the tropes with the interference and all that. And even if you didn't like some of the matches, they were still big attraction type matches. And it was because of what this reign had become for Roman Reigns. And I truly believe that maybe Cody's story isn't what it is without Roman Reigns being the villain. And again, you could say, well, you could plug anybody in there, you could put this person there, it would have been the same. I just don't think so. And that's why I think it worked so perfectly, is because you had every side, every party that was involved in this, they played their role to perfection. And Cody triumphs as the new hero. He does finally conquer, the villain in Roman Reigns, who just could not be beaten for 1,316 days as champion. And I think if you look back historically, we have to remember, right? Steve Austin, when he became the guy, right, in WWE, he needed multiple guys to be able to have that opportunity. He needed those kind of, large figures to be able to overcome, because that's the whole point. You need to give, the ultimate triumph for the babyface. He has to have something to overcome that feels important, feels meaningful. It can't just be anything. It has to be something that is earned. And Cody totally earned that, right? Because it took everything. And yes, we talked about kind of the finish and everything like that, and there's so many people coming in, but it was the Avengers, right? Like, that's what ultimately helped Cody finish this thing, because that's what it took to beat Roman Reigns. the invincible champion. And again, like you go back to Austin's situation, where it's like there were times where Austin was better because he had The Rock to play off of. That first title win over Shawn Michaels. Vince, of course. Like, he had all of these guys that he could play off of, and when he finally overcame all the shenanigans, everything that those guys tried to do to him to prevent him from reaching his goal, it made you feel even better. Like, it was even more important. And like, even go back to like Daniel Bryan, right? And it's kind of funny, like you go to the different sort of eras of WrestleMania, but back to WrestleMania 30, Daniel Bryan needed Triple H. He needed the authority kind of holding him back and all these things because it was going to make him that much sweeter when he finally overcame it. And I think that's what Roman Reigns was to Cody, right? Like, that's what he became, was the guy that it's going to make it much sweeter because of that. And I just think, again, you look at this and think about what the Bloodline story did for WWE during this reign, where Reigns kind of makes that turn in his character, right? And let's not forget, too, like, I think, and this was brought back up, and I know we mentioned it in one of the reaction videos this weekend for WrestleMania. Someone had asked, like, hey, what's, like, the update on Reigns with the leukemia situation, all that, because he had brought it up, I think it was, in the A&E biography or something like that, and maybe mentioned on the Pat McAfee show. I don't remember exactly what he said, but, he answered some of the questions about, hey, I'm still, this is a daily thing for me. He's taking, the thing that he takes for it and all that. But let's remember, that was 2018, October 2018. Like, that hasn't been that long ago when Reigns is making that announcement that he may never wrestle again at that point. And like, that's honestly our expectation. And so the pandemic hits, he obviously made his return before that, goes into remission, pandemic hits, that changes things because of everything involved there. And then, he makes the comeback, and that's when we start to see this new character, right? We see him evolve into the Tribal Chief with Paul Heyman by his side, and then that's where the Bloodline storyline. You think about the dip where WWE was at that point, and of course, like I said, the pandemic certainly hurt from a standpoint of you get a lot of fans who just maybe are just checking out, right? Because as we said, it was such a different time, not just in the world, but if you're watching wrestling, it's so different watching it without fans and all these other things. And so Reigns comes out of this evolving into this new character, and that's what starts to bring people back in. A few more at a time, a few more at a time, a few more at a time, right? And now you start to see what this story, with Roman Reigns as the head of the storyline, pun intended, as the head of the table, what the Bloodline storyline became for WWE during this time. And like we said, we're far from over here. We're about to get the next chapter of the Bloodline, and I think, like I mentioned, it starts on Friday on SmackDown. But if you think about what that story did to elevate not just Roman Reigns, but everybody else around him, right? Think about what Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, Solo Sikoa, even Paul Heyman to an extent. Like, Heyman's always been great, but you think about what this has done for Paul Heyman. And even at times, look, he would beat people, but there were ways where, look, because you were in the storyline, right? Sami Zayn, it's a great example of this. Sami Zayn being involved in that elevated Sami Zayn to a new level. And it's all because of that aura, just the whatever Roman Reigns has, right? The it factor, the intangibles, everything in this character that he brought to the table during this 1,316-day reign, it made everything else feel so much bigger when you were attached to the Roman Reigns bloodline story. And I think that's where you have to, of course, tip your cap to everyone behind the scenes who's being able to push the right buttons in the storyline and everything like that. But just his presence on the screen, whether it is in promos, whether it's in matches, whatever, he was the guy, right? He became the guy. He reinvented himself in this new character. And I think this brought so many people back to professional wrestling. And we saw it just from a rating standpoint. Like, you were seeing SmackDown do incredible, viewership numbers and all that when Reigns was in there. And of course, when The Rock came back, that changed it to an extent too. And we've done many videos mentioning, hey, Roman kind of feels like a little bit of a sidebar here compared to The Rock. And as we said, maybe some of that's a little bit intentional, but I don't think it should overshadow the run in full that he had from start to finish as champion, because like I said, it completely took a lot of different things to a new level, whether that's the people he faced, whether it's Sammy, whether it's Cody, and I know there were plenty of other people along the way. And I also mentioned too, I know there were probably some of the tropes that people got tired of with interference and winning this way, and Roman wins again, all this. But I don't think you can deny that what he did by elevating himself, by elevating the entire bloodline story, it made everything so much sweeter when Cody goes from WrestleMania 39 to WrestleMania 40 and how he's able to finally conquer Roman Reigns. And I know The Rock was involved and all this other stuff. And it probably does feel a little bit different without The Rock, right? Let's call it what it is. Who knows what the story looks like if The Rock's not in it for the past 2 months. But I still hope that there are people that will acknowledge the tribal chief and his role in this entire thing and over the past 4 years now and what he was able to achieve with this iteration of his character. Because as I've said many times, I think we're about to get the next one with Roman Reigns, because I think it's going to be Roman Reigns, the cheered babyface. Finally, the tribal chief's about to lose it whenever either the bloodline kicks him out or he becomes the guy that's somehow getting cheered over the final boss and The Rock. So I just wanted to make sure we did something on this because I thought it was really important to really step back for a second. All the focus is on Cody now. It's his era. It's Cody's time. But you need people like Roman Reigns to eventually get that guy who's the new guy, which is Cody Rhodes, to that next level. And I think Reigns was able to do that, but it wasn't just Cody. It was everything else that you kind of put within this bloodline story over the past several years. And as always, there's going to be some hits, there's going to be some misses, but as a whole, I don't think we can deny the success of this story and the success of Roman Reigns as the tribal chief, the head of the table, the long reigning Universal Champion. And the story culminated, it climaxed exactly the way it should have. And I think it's only going to make Cody now a bigger star. And it's only potentially going to make Roman the new Roman that I think we're going to get even bigger too once we get to the inevitable Roman Reigns versus The Rock match that we're going to feel like we're going to get WrestleMania 41. And so I think it's going to be very exciting to see how this whole thing's unfold. So raise the ones in the comments, acknowledge the tribal chief, and let me know your thoughts. Like, what did you think of this entire 4-year run here, basically, for as Universal Champion? The highs, the lows, everything that came along with it. But like I mentioned, I hope everyone looks back at this and realizes this was a very, very special part of WWE history for Roman Reigns, and we'll see what's next for him as we move forward. Appreciate you guys watching. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out, and let me know what you thought about the tribal chief, Roman Reigns, 1,316 days as champion. Acknowledge him in the comments.